Today's extra special, and I appreciate you guys jumping on. Really, it's interesting. We brought some guests in from out of town, and now we're going to talk to some guests in town, which is in our own office. So thank you guys. Thank you, Liz Mucci. Thank you, Danny Gamil, Russ Lemingazov, and Judith Mckeena. So thank you so much for being on the call, Zoom call. I know our agents who may or may not be on today. This will be recorded and for those to play back. So the theme has been and remains to be that past, present, and future. So this is going to be a little bit different than in the past, meaning in terms of when we've done panels. What I'd like is to give each, so as you see the theme here, we have teams on, and tomorrow we'll have mostly individuals in tomorrow's interviews. But we want to give everybody a chance to talk about past, present, and future without a break in that team's stride. So that's kind of the way the cadence is going to go today. So first we're going to talk with Liz Mucci. Second, we'll talk with expansion team, Danny and Russ, and then we'll talk with Judith Mckeena. And then at the end of the meeting, of course, any agents on the line who have questions, then we'll kind of turn it into a panel. So that's my hopes in this 1 hour session. So 20 minutes each, 15 minutes each, and then last is going to be 10, 15 minutes of questions. So, and that's my son yelling, so that's always fun. So you talked about that before. Sorry, I just want to make sure everything is cool. So anyway, let's start. Liz Mucci. Liz, let's make sure that the micro's. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
So basically what we're going to talk about here, let me just make sure we have the audio done here, and then we're going to open up your audio. Sorry, Liz, give me 1 second. Liz, can you just unmute yourself? There we go. Beautiful. Yeah. So what I did was I just muted everybody, so this way audio is good. So good morning to you. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about past, present, and future. And during these times, we're offering some hope, we're offering some strategy, we're offering a whole bunch of things over here, and that's why the theme has been for the past almost 2 weeks now, past, present, and future. So not to go real deep into the history because of time constraints, but let's talk about past for you and what that meant as an individual, and then of course as you grew your team. But let's talk about the past though first.
Okay, so I got into real estate at a really young age of 17. I worked for a really big office on Staten Island as a receptionist. That got me into saying like, wow, there's so many people out there making, building a great big business, making a lot of money. If they can do it, why can't I? So I then went to get my real estate license, and for the past few years, I was in between management and sales. And for the past maybe 3 years, it's been strictly sales, building our team with my husband. And that's pretty much where we lie right now.
Okay, so now, and during that past, you've been through some economic crises, right? Or the U.S. economic, right? So you were in the business around the time when the market wasn't as good.
Just literally got into the business.
Yeah. Wow. So basically got into the business exactly around the time where the market was just boom, crashed. So so let's talk about those times though. Number one, were you able to sustain a business? What kept you here, right? I mean, you're here now, so you made it through.
Yeah.
What would you say, what was the climate like for you?
So for me, the biggest thing that I learned in that aspect was relationships. Like that was key thing, being new into the business, not having a book of business at that point, being very young. I was looked at like, well, how can you help me with my biggest investment in my life? And I can't disagree with that. Being 18, 19, 20 years old, I didn't own a home. I lived at home with my parents. So like that was a really big help for me. But I think that's where I learned a really big foundation on how would I be different than the agents that have the many, many years of experience on top of me? So to me, that was social media. And that was in 2008, 9, you know, as relevant as it was then, it is now also, even more so. So social media, being out there, marketing, all of that type of stuff, and relationships. So I never called expireds or for sale by owners. I was brand new in the business. So my goal was connections, meeting people, asking for the business, connecting with other agents, referrals. And as my business was then, it is now. So it's
Interesting.
pretty interesting.
And tell me about like the deals. I mean, we talk about how you grew the business, but I think what we can offer to agents out there, one of my goals on these calls actually to describe what the climate was and how you navigated that climate. Even though we're not in the thick of things now, we possibly could be. And even if it doesn't happen, and we're all hopeful that it doesn't, and we're going to have this still very robust market. But what was it like? I mean, were deals going into contract? Like how many showings, like did you do the same number of showings? Walk me through that. What were the listings like? I know that on social media, sometimes you take these beautiful pictures of like people lining up outside the house. But I know during those times that we didn't always have people lining up outside the house for a listing. So what was that like?
So back then, it's really a little hard for me to compare from back then to kind of now because I was so new in the business, but the same concepts for me are there. So adapt and adjust, right? So what are things that we can do more of? So if you're not getting the listings, the showing, like what is it that you can do and not focus so much on what you can't do? Back then, it was more of an economic crisis where we could still go out and get listings and do showings and all of that, where right now we can't do showings and things like that. We could take listings, but for me personally right now, it's a choice. And I have to be okay with whatever choice it is that I'm making for my business. Mm-hmm. So, what can we do more of in our business to be relevant? That's necessarily what I'm focusing on. And what are our strengths? Focus on the strengths that we do have and the things that we're maybe not so great at. How can we improve on that?
Interesting. Okay. And then now that's kind of where we're in kind of the present, so that's that past piece. You got through that economic, downturn. And what would you say though, you were in a leadership role in the past of a company. What was the agent mentality, right? So what I mean by agent mentality, right now, Tom Ferry said something the other day on a video with Boomtown Unite, and it was interesting. He talked about the turtle, right? And how the turtle sometimes, they just running or they're walking around on the sand. And then sometimes what happens is when the turtle wants to is nervous, they go inside the shell and they bask in the sun. And he said he's describing that some of the agents or people rather are like that now. Now, of course, we're in a very different time than the economic crisis. So I'm very mindful of that. But, how would you describe the agents of 2008, 9, and 10? Because you were in a leadership role. What was the mindset behind the agent, even after the crisis? What I mean by that is like the first 3 months of the crisis, although this is a humanity thing, right? I mean, people can lose their lives out here. But let's just talk as if there wasn't that pandemic, and we talked about 2008. What was after that 3 months like? What was the agent mentality? How did it feel for agents? And did they get through it? Let's what was that like?
So to me personally, that's, and being in the leadership role, some people will get through that. Some people won't. And I think the most important part of it is you personally figuring it out. Is this a career choice? Is this a second income? Is this, what is this business for you? For me, it's my household income. My husband and I sell real estate. We have a real estate business. There's no option at all And when you have no option, you make it work. You know, if there maybe is an option, you know, and yesterday you talked about it. Are people going to use this as an excuse? My real estate business is not where it is or where it should be or where my goals were for it to be because of this. And I'm a person that doesn't believe that that is an excuse for where your circumstances are. Being in a leadership position, we always, in almost every single training about goals and goal setting, it was always save for a rainy day. Save, and we're going through a storm. We're not going through a rainy day. We're going through a storm. And I think the people who have saved for that may, you know, figure this out a little bit better than those who haven't. I'm glad that I always took my own advice on that and saved for, God forbid, you know, what happens when there is no income coming in and it's out of our control. Another thing that I personally went through on this, you know, whole quarantine was someone actually talked about it the other day on a call that I was on, and it just made so much sense. It was the 5 steps of grief. And although this is not necessarily grief on that aspect, or it could be for some people, it's affected different families in different ways. But I looked at it and I said, wow, I actually went through the steps. And like in the past few days is where I just hit acceptance for me. So for whoever doesn't know what the 5 steps of grief are, it's denial, then you're angry, then you're bargaining, you want something different, you want a way out. Like I thought of that, like, and what happens if they're, you know, if I can't sustain this business, you know? Then there's like the depression part where you're sad and just upset and all of that. And then you finally come through and it's acceptance. And it's the point of, this is the new norm for right now. Things will get back to the new normal. And how can I adjust to that?
Very good point. Very good point. And then now as, you know, we go into the future, and the future is here now. What does that look like? And, you know, as I always say on these calls, we know, you know, I wish I was an economist. Well, no, actually, I don't wish I was an economist, but we're not economists. We're just trying to predict from our field experience, where do you see this going from the economic standpoint in real estate? And then just the future of real estate, you know, what tools, what will this look like in the quote unquote new norm? You know, does Zoom emerge? What emerges from all this? More 3D tours. So what can you share about that?
So I'm kind of excited about what's going to emerge from this. In the real estate aspect, I think it's going to weed out a lot of what needs to get weeded out as far as it just even in our business, and that'll make room for us agents to shine. I truly do believe that. My business is based on networking and relationships and referrals. I'm not necessarily a caller. We don't call expireds or for sale by owners. So our business was never really focused on that. So our business hasn't changed that much except with the aspect of being able to be face-to-face with people in person. So our connections are still really, really important to us. We work from home a lot as it was before this. And it's just, you know, reaching out to people. And I think that if we stay focused on helping people, there's no way that we can't survive. Real estate is always evolving. You know, right now we put 2 deals under contract during this. Appraisals happened. People need to move. You know, life events still happen. People get married. Unfortunately, people pass away. People get divorced. It's constantly evolving. So, you know, there will always be a real estate market. It just depends on who's going to make it.
Interesting. And then, you know, I've talked a lot about transition, and I like to use that word transition because I feel like it's a safe word. I think that no matter how you look at it, before the pandemic, during the pandemic, post-pandemic, there's going to be a transition of some sort. We don't know exactly where that transition is going to be, Do you have any thoughts or feelings on that? Do you believe, right? So Keeping Current Matters, there's that website that talked, it was mentioned yesterday by Jay Pitts. He mentioned, 77% of buyers believe they're going to get a good deal when this is all done. And then, and again, these are numbers that he mentioned, and from this website, I haven't looked at it yet, but he said about 90% of the sellers believe that they will get the same price. So what that means to me is transition is going to happen because it's the tug of war. Who will win? Will the buyers win? Will the sellers win? Any kind of feelings on that?
It's a 50, for me, I feel 50-50, because it's an aspect of when we can actually go out and show again,
right,
that we will have an influx of people that will be calling on our listings. And
do you think that inventory will start to rise? What do you think about the seller inventory?
Well, so something really important about, keeping current with what's going on is knowing what the stats are. So like last night, I pulled the stats of what's happened in Staten Island since April 1st, and there's been 60 new listings, 50 price reductions, 41, and I'm reading this because I wrote it all down, 41 acceptances, 80 closings, 90 pending. 90 properties went under contract since April 1st.
Wow.
112 extensions, 72 back on markets, and then there's, a lot of expireds and cancel and withdrawn. So the market is still moving. On my last transaction I just put under contract, when we were negotiating after the inspection, you have to educate the seller. My client was the seller, and we had more than one offer on the property, and he's like, you know what, we may go back and tell them, we have other offers. And I said, take a second. Just because we have other offers doesn't mean anything. Let's look at, are they qualified? Let's look at their job history. Let's look at their pre-approval. Let's look at how much money do they have in the bank. Let's look at their down payment. So maybe for a seller, negotiating their price a little for the right buyer is worth it. So I think every situation will be different depending on the pieces to the puzzle for that.
Using the data is key. And, we've had the state of the market every single month at the office at Remax Edge. But what I've guided agents on is that we should all be cued into, locked into our MLSs and the data. And I think that's fantastic that you review your own data, because we do pay dues to these boards, and some of these websites actually have a lot of rich data for you to use, and it's great, because when you're talking to a seller, they're going to be watching possibly the big media outlets,
right.
And ultimately that's not necessarily a lens on the micro market. Staten Island is one big micro market. There's a lot of parts of Staten Island, but on the Brooklyn side, there are a ton of micro markets. And I think that the conversation, and I think it's just proven right here. You had a conversation, you see that there's activity, and it also, I think this is probably this, we both learned this, and probably every single agent or team rather on the phone right now has learned this. In order to motivate ourselves, we actually have to personally see the movement as well. Because when you're seeing the TV saying everything is completely shut down, 100%. or some agent in who might be on one of those television shows saying that everything shut down because he shut down, actually, I don't know about that. You got to check the data first and then make your own assessment. So I like what you said about making your own assessment, because what I'm here to do is inspire and help our agents grow. But the reality is we all need to make our own assessments for our own businesses, because we're a business that helps people build their business. So in that case, we need to have some self-discovery. So that's great. Thank you for sharing all that. Any final notes before we move on to our next guest?
No, I just think that, like I said, for me personally, I had to choose which direction I wanted for my business and not compare it to someone else. And I think that's the number one thing. If you see people out there posting, new listings, accepted offer, under contract, and you don't feel comfortable doing that, don't do it. If you don't see other people doing it, but you want to do it, just keep focused on what's important to you and your business, and just go with it.
It's a very good point. Yep. And that goes for no matter what climate we're in, you know, do you, you know, take this all in, take this call in, take what you say in, take whatever the YouTube, the emails, and then build your own business around that, and you'll be safe. You'll be safe. So thank you for that. And as some of the calls that might have joined us a little bit later, the way this is going to work is each one of our guests is actually going to speak for about 15 minutes or so. And then at the end, Liz, if you could stick around, if you can't, I understand. We'll do a quick, 10-minute Q&A for all of you guys at the end for pacing. But if any one of you guys that are our guests have to go, I understand. So thank you for your contribution. And I'm sure everybody in the office appreciates this as well. So thank you. So next, we have expansion team, and that's Ruslan Mimizov and Danny Gamil. So hello, guys.
Hello. How are you?
Hello, hello.
Good. So yeah, same thing. We're going to talk about past, present, and future. So let's talk about the past first. When you guys got into the business, I know you guys started as individuals, and I think a lot of people, when they're looking to grow teams, I think team is a very interesting word in our business today. And I'm excited for this presentation because if you notice, Liz and her husband, that's a husband and wife team. And you guys were individuals, and you guys were, individual agents, and then you put a business together, and now the expansion team. And then of course, Judith Mckeena, she has the CEO model where she's a CEO, and then, it's hired around that. So it's actually have 3 different types of setups over here. So now in your setup, let's talk though about your individual business in the past, how that looked, and then we'll talk about when you guys put this together. So tell me who's going to go first.
I'll start first. Russ, you cool?
Yeah.
Okay.
For
Russ,
the
I'm not
record,
seeing, there we go.
I'm the husband.
You're the what?
That's Russ.
Okay.
It's okay.
All good.
All good. Thanks. I appreciate it. Hey, Mike.
Hey.
Okay. So I started in the business in around 2005, 2006. I was an individual agent. I was working with a couple of different companies until I kind of found my spot. I found my spot really, I'm going to say after the 2008 time. I found my spot maybe like 2010, where I started really being focused into the business, taking it really serious. From 2010 till about 2012, I was staying consistent. I was doing, between probably 10 deals a year, 12 deals a year. I was single. I was still enjoying life. I finally met my wife in 2012. We started dating each other, and that's when things started to change for me, where I started to take the business a lot more seriously, going into the office 8 o'clock in the morning, not finishing the day till 8, 9 o'clock in the evening, just hitting the phones really, really, really hard. I do remember an example. I started again, it was like August, where I started really hitting the phones really hard. And I remember for like 2-3 months coming home every day and just discouraged, nothing was happening, and my wife kept on telling me, Danny, things are going to happen. Keep on pushing. Dots will connect. And I remember October was the first listing I got from like August, starting to rebuild my business again. And starting that October, things just started to connect, and I was getting 4, 5, 6 listings a month. I probably did that for about 3 years. 3 years I was doing between 20 to 25 deals a year on my own. And then I winded up connecting with Keller Williams. And that's how Russ and I met, which was definitely great for both of us. That's when business really started changing, where we started to kind of look at each other and figure out what both of our strengths were, what our weaknesses were, who can do what, and what we were good at. And basically we did that for 3 years, 3.5 years at Keller Williams, really kind of just became the #1 team over there. That was always my goal, to kind of push as hard as I possibly could. Russ was the same way. Russ was persistent. He was a hustler. He didn't take no for an answer, which is, as salespeople, we have to continue to push. No can't be a reason to stop. No means not now. So That's one thing that I've always learned. And then kind of just, after that, things just started to kind of grow where, Russ is the operations guy. He took the business kind of to a different level on social media platforms, on different platforms that I probably wasn't so familiar with. So I just stuck to what I was good at, and that was lead generating and meeting people and picking up business. And that's how we grew it. And that was the past, I guess.
Yeah. And Russ, any additions or not any additions? What would you have to contribute on that? Because you were also an individual prior to joining forces with Danny and creating an expansion team. So tell us your end.
My end of it. Well, I was born in 1990 in a small town in
Yeah, please. Yeah, come on.
So, I'm actually about to hit my 10th year in real estate. So it's about to be 10 years. When I started in real estate, I was regional manager for Regal and Tamara Group in movie theaters. So I managed all 13 theaters and between 3 or 4 boroughs. I felt like I used to peak over there, right? And so I had capped my salary. It was good money, but it wasn't where I wanted to be. So I applied for a secretary job in a real estate firm. I got the job, and like a day in, he called me over. He said, "Hey, why are you doing this? Become an agent." So I did, and 3 years later, I left that firm. I was the manager there. I helped them grow from 1 office into 3 offices, and now he has 5 offices. In my first year in real estate, I made 110. Okay, and my second year it was lower. In the third year, I became a quote unquote. I was manager there, and that third year I made even less money than did in theaters. And so when I joined Keller Williams, in my first year, I capped other than Keller Williams, and then at the beginning of second year, I met Danny, and that's where it all just blew up. Everything just took off from there, and we did pretty well. I think Liz was our team leader, and so with her guidance and coaching, and we set a goal, and we crushed that goal. And at the time, our goal I think was as a team 220 or 240, and we just crushed it. We just crushed that goal, and it was great. And so it made sense. I remember that me and Danny, we were the first ones in the office and last ones to leave, and so it was nice. It made sense. And so how Danny said, he's a lead generator. He goes on 90% of the appointments, and then just on the operations. I turned it into a business. So there's an agent, and then there's a business, and it took off.
Yeah, and that's interesting. And that's why there's always a method to what we do at Remax Edge. We basically structured it where we talk about 3 different formats in the team setting, and you guys plugged it in together, and that's another setting. So you have the operations side, lead gen side. So it's a good match.
Well, if you look at all the models, right, that are out there, just that that I learned about.
There are 3. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's well, and different companies of models. We don't fit any mold that is out there. Having 2 guys that they're not the husband and wife who are not. It's not just a one rainmaker or quote unquote. So it was just unconventional, and I think that you get to be if you're starting a team, you have to be very careful about who you started with, because if you're not compatible, if you're 2 very dominant people, and just say if you feel, at some point you will feel like one guy's not doing enough or too little, and just it's gonna implode. I think that now us being together for I think it's turning into our 7th year. It's rare, and so I'm very thankful for that.
Absolutely, and there are just for the record, there are three structures in our industry, and we have that family team, or groups of people together that start their business. Then you have the business you have here, where you have partners grouping together, and then really just started to create some structure, right? So when we talk about, as they describe it, friends or family getting together, creating a team with really out any structure, that kind of, again, this from an industry perspective, that works because it's kind of like, you're my cousin, you're my mom, you're my dad, you're my partner in life, whatever that is. And then in your situation, you were two individual agents merging the business and starting to create some structure together, where you essentially are partners in business. And then there's the third structure where the CEO is born of that, and then the CEO starts to hire more people beneath him. So it's a kudos to you guys for keeping this up and being compatible. And thank you for sharing that, Russ. It's very important for any agents out there, because truly, from all the studies, not based on studies that I put out there, some really, really smart individuals. And I think I'm smart, but there's a lot of research analysts talking about the structures in real estate. And these are the three that actually have worked. They all have different lifespans in many cases. But these are three that have worked. There are other structures that, they call themselves team, but they're really not. I wouldn't say they're not, but they have not been proven long-term. So thank you for sharing that piece. So let's kind of walk through over here, because we have a few more minutes to get through present, and we had some questions from the group. But as I mentioned, to the group here, I'd like to have those questions at the end, to be mindful of everyone's time, meaning all you guys that are our interview, our guests. So we'll leave the last 10 minutes for those questions. So please, for everybody that's putting questions in the chat box, keep putting them there, and we will get to it at the end to keep this flow going. So let's talk about present. Where are we at today with our business? Not just COVID-19, but leading up to COVID-19, and then of course this situation that we have with COVID. So where are we at present? You have, besides you two guys, what other staff members? When did you hire that first staff member? Kind of walk us through that present piece.
Sure. Well, Danny, I'll take it off from here, if you don't mind. Our first 2 years, we were a duo, right? It turned into a team. I think really in a third year. Sorry, I apologize. In the third year, when we hired our assistant, at the time, our roles were that, as long as now, Danny got a majority of the listings, and then I serviced them, and then as the jobs grew and grew and grew, and we added on more tasks and more listings, we couldn't handle it on our own, and so we hired an assistant, and that by itself was a very challenging process, because it could be a revolving door, or it could be a good fit, and just and I think now where we are now in 2020, it's an excellent fit, and she's really helping us to grow our team. And our third to fourth year, we started having agents join our team, and now, and again, it's got to be understandable that in those roles, it's also very possible that it's a revolving door as well. And at this time, we have 3 agents on our team, 1 assistant, and 1 ISA in the Philippines. So it's still growing. Our structure is evolving every day. It's not where we want it to be, but it's definitely getting there. And just with this whole pandemic, I don't think it slowed us down. I think that it just exposes who's who on the team, and who steps up and who does the work, who doesn't do work, and and it shows. So if anybody on our team is on this call, be aware of that. This is the time where you show who you are and improve yourself to see if you can make it in the business. And just I'm very excited to see things change. Because I want to filter out. I want to get the best of the best. I want to drop off the all the slack that's just I don't know, holding us down. So like I'm very, very excited to see where it's going to be. But
Yeah, and I want to add to
schools.
that, Russ. Before you go on, I want to add to what you're saying because it's a very important point. It's not just your team. In fact, a buddy of mine that I was on a call with, we're on a lot of Zoom meetings lately, which is good because that's the big silver lining in all this as well. There's this pause, but actually it's a way to go forward. I think what you said is very, very relevant, not only to your team, but also to an industry. I think a lot of people are exposed. And what I mean by exposed, even those agents that might have been really at the top level have been exposed, because when you're coaching, including myself, when I coach I'm not coaching myself, but when I get coaching or mentoring from other people, I've also been exposed. We've all been exposed. And what that means is that we say we're busy, right? But are we really busy? And what are we doing to keep us moving forward in our businesses? So what it means by exposed is a lot of agents over the years, including myself, that's I put myself in these categories, for sure, have said, I'm too busy, I can't do this. And now, right now, you should be working from home. You should be pausing your business. Pausing your activities, going out and showing. And that's exposing a lot of people. And that's what Liz had mentioned earlier today. My quote, what I said was, people will blame this on the pandemic when their business is not as fruitful in the next, 4 to 8 months. When the reality is they possibly have been exposed now because they have a lot more time on their hands, and staying at home, you can you can choose to watch TV, and I understand there's I've got a 3-year-old, and there's a lot going on, but the reality is we still have more time than we ever have before to do things that we possibly couldn't. So I would wholeheartedly agree with you about your team, but I also would let people know this is actually the industry-wide. It's industry-wide age. And what's crazy, Russ and Danny, is that some of the best agents that are considered really good right now, you're going to see some very interesting things when this all comes out, because the agents that are putting the time in today to continue to move forward their business are going to be a lot more prepared and ready when this is all done. So so let's just wrap a few more minutes over here before we go on to Judith Mckeena. Any other discussions on present, and then we'll talk future as we wrap.
Okay. On the present, Mike, I kind of live by one thing, you get what you put into it. I think it's very important that we continue as agents to continue to do what we're doing, not just to kind of put our feet off the gas. There's so many different ways we can reach out to clients, whether it's via text message, video messages. This is a great time for you to get comfortable with the camera. Me personally, I'm always very camera shy. I think through the last couple of days, I've been doing a lot of video sending to clients, not really on social media, but sending it to clients personally, where I'm getting the courage. I'm getting the courage to be in front of camera because I'm one of the strong ones, and I'm going to survive, and I'm going to continue to do what I have to continue to build a team, which means I need to bring in listings. I need to build the relationships, whether they want to sell now, they don't want to sell now. It's just a matter of catching up and staying in touch with them. So the one thing I'm going to say is stay focused and continue to do what you need to. Even though we're all slowing down a little bit, we have to take our time to ourselves as well. I think this is a great time to kind of reflect on our own self, our family, spending time with our kids, spending time with our loved ones, because we don't know what can be tomorrow, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't continue to do what we need to do.
Excellent.
Danny.
And yeah, go ahead, Russ.
I just want to say, and I know Danny can, now he really attests to this. It's in my experience, and also that his experience, it's amazing how much what good effect a video can do. We've been doing all these videos, sending out to our clients. We got we had a seller from like 4 years ago. I sent him a video, and I called me up. He says, "Hey, I want to buy a house." Like, it just, and now I feel
Wow.
like having listings is gold, but at this time in the present, at this exact moment, buyers are gold. I think that buyers, like, if you have a buyer right now who's willing to go and see a property and make an offer, pay for a home inspection, give a deposit, it takes guts, and courage in this market, and so just if you have that buyer, you have gold. Having a listing at this time, it's always gold, but at this time now, it's kind of silver. Having gold right now is having that buyer who's willing to go forward and sign the contract and close. I think so that, but sorry, that's on a tangent. Doing a video right now, I think is so important, and just I wish that, in hindsight, I wish that with the videos, our entire career, because if your call expired, after calling them, if you send them a video, how much more of an effect will it have on them? So
It
it's
makes a
in
difference.
hindsight. Hindsight.
And Russ, you bring up an excellent point that we've been trying to share with our group at Remax Edge. Now today, more people are getting more comfortable with video, and now all the catchphrases in the real estate business where we talked about rehumanization, and the real estate industry is always behind a little bit. I think what will happen is, for those agents that progress now, I wouldn't worry about too much, Russ, in terms of hindsight, because I think agents will put this all on the shelf for the next couple of months. And I think the reality is those agents that say, you know what, the heck with this, I'm going to stay relevant. There's no more rehumanizing, because video, I think today, just as you're already discovering, that video is going to become the standard in our business. And now it's going to be those that adopt it and take it to the next level that win. Because just like reviews were important, but everyone made fun of reviews in the past, like, oh, what's a review? That's not that important. Now, today, more than ever, reviews are important because of the social footprint. Videos are going to do the same thing. Oh, yeah, when this pandemic is over, and I hate to use the word over because we don't know when it's going to be over, but when this pandemic kind of slows down and we get the word to go out, people put the video back on the shelf. But the agents that were testing and playing with it, they take it to the next level. And then maybe 6 to 8 months from now, they will adopt video. But the agents that were ahead of the game, 6 to 8 months now ahead, with video, there's so much. Forget about rehumanization. Ready? Agents are exposed again. Leaders are exposed again. Because why? You could put something in writing. You can do a headshot and look pretty cool with a picture on Instagram or WeChat or Facebook. But when you speak and talk about your business and how you service your clients, and people feel the emotion through the phone, that's way different than texting somebody saying, hey, I'm the best professional. I'm going to get the house sold. I'm going to help you buy. So I think this is really interesting. And thank you for sharing that, because that actually covers the future. And I think the future is bright. I really do. And that's I promise you guys, I promise everybody, the future is bright for those that adopt this. And that's where I see the challenge with agents that don't adopt this, because the agents that are at I hate to call it the top of the food chain, but the ones that adopt this stuff, they become way at the top of the food chain, because think about how much video people can find you better and easier through videos, and then get connected with you faster, feel like they actually have this relationship with you already, and they want to connect with you now more than the 75 other agents who called them up and saying, hey, I heard your house didn't sell. I can sell today for you. Now you have a video that says, wow, this person, I get to quote unquote try before you buy, right? They get to see all that you've been doing, not only through reviews was the social proof. So people saw your reviews, but now people will see your videos. So that's an excellent point, Russ. Any final notes from you guys?
Image in their head.
Yeah, it's an image in their head, and it's different. Somebody calling them on the phone is not easy. It's you guys are very good relationship builders. I think everybody who's been on this call are good relationship builders, but I think this enhances the relationship building.
Well, what's going to happen to the ISA who, historically didn't want to be seen, wanted to be in the background, wanted to just hide in the office and make calls? now that ISA has to be upfront, and in video.
It's going to
they can't
take,
hide
Russ,
anymore.
it's certainly going to take time. You guys are way ahead of the curve, and I'm so happy that, you've been open-minded about this and really then seeing the work that you're doing now during this time, really see the fruits of your labor by doing this. So, but yeah, just like everything else in the real estate industry, Russ and Danny and everybody else on the call, it takes time. It takes time for this. So I think that's why I believe, just like reviews, it took time for people to get to reviews. And by the time reviews were really, really relevant, there were agents who already had way more reviews than the next person. And the challenge, Russ, just like reviews, just look at the review process. The agents that are not getting a ton of reviews, possibly some people give up on it because they don't believe it's actually being helpful. But the reality is, just like everything else, every little piece of your business is important, right? Let's think about this: the consumer. Somebody's a review person, they check reviews. Somebody's a video person, somebody's a LinkedIn person, somebody's a WeChat, somebody's a Facebook person. You don't know what channel they subscribe to. So if you get the content out to all the different channels, it increases your chances. And here's my last closing piece before we get to Judy. Guys, if they subscribe to like 5 channels and they see you on all 5 channels, you then just got really, really enhanced in their brain. And that's another challenge to agents if they go to their comfort level of, let's say, just Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, WeChat, just one channel, that's great. But the challenge is for the customer that looks a little bit on each one of those spots, they don't, then they're not seen as wow, that may not be the agent I want to go with. But for a team or an agent that's in all different spots, it says, oh my gosh, this person is really, truly the person that's out there. So great advice. So yeah, just as we go, before we go to Judy, any economic, you talked about video, any final thoughts for future that we can go quick because we got to move to Judy.
Well, Mike, you there? Okay.
Here, yeah.
Okay. So in terms of the future, it's not something that I can foresee right now. Me personally, I was hoping that this thing would be lifted 2 weeks ago, and now I'm hoping it's going to be lifted in a couple of weeks from now.
And open safely, right? So when we say open safely and be mindful, I think we're all hoping for that. So so we don't, we're that company that we want to open, but we want to open safely. We want to be mindful, making sure that we care about, those that have compromised immune systems. So yeah, and I know on our conversations that's what you've hoped for in the past as well. So just because we have an audience here, make sure that we have been mindful of that. We don't want, So go ahead, continue. Sorry.
But still focus on the goal. Even
Absolutely.
though we don't know where the market will be, you got to do a little bit of everything. I've always said it works some of the time, all the time, none of the time. You never know what's going to work. So why not do a little bit of everything and see what you even enjoy? There's a good chance you might enjoy doing something that you weren't comfortable doing before, just like videos for me.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. Russ, anything else on the future part?
On future part, it's how you've been saying. How people on this call? On this call, there are about 30 people, right?
Yep.
And 6 months from now, instead of 30, it's going to be 15. So
Well, Remax Edge, we hope it to be 100, but
sure. But it's the concept, it's the analogy.
No, of course, yes.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
It's all right. No, but for sure, yeah. No, but the industry, as you said, is and that's, I would say there is a silver lining to that as well. I know Judith, as we're segueing to Judy brought up a good point about, Staten Island and how she knew the membership drop back in 2008 significantly. But Judy will talk about her success because actually in 2008 she got into the industry. So I think it's a great segue into Judy because actually Judith brought that up in a call that we had together about 2 weeks ago, that there is a silver lining even to that. And perhaps, Russ, just even the silver lining for those agents, because I feel bad for people just leaving the industry, perhaps they will find their way and find something that's better suited for them. So there is a silver lining to, even though, because sometimes what you hear is like, oh, all these agents are leaving. Hopefully they'll find their way because perhaps they weren't necessarily fully committed to the business anyway.
Well, hopefully they find a team to go to where, their strength can be witnessed. You know?
No, that's true. And I think that born of this economy, or rather this new, as we go through here, I think that more agents will gravitate towards a team. More people will build teams, but build teams in a way that there's value also in being a part of the team, right? So for the team that's creating systems and models versus just these, I will say it on the call, versus these teams that just have this one person basically being a manager without a paycheck type of team. Like, okay, we've got all these people, they're on our team, but really, what's really the value in that? I think that agents will gravitate towards teams that have a system in place, that have something that could be extremely valuable, because there's an extreme difference, right? The team will tie into the power brokerage, and the power team will lead some agents as well. And I think that's where the future of our business is. Personally, that's my observation. Just because the power team will say, well, I want to plug into this power brokerage with market share, with all these other tools that can help me build. Those teams then build something for their team within the brokerage, business building business. That's Remax Edge's mantra. And then those agents that go on the team say, you know what, I don't want to build all this automation. I don't want to have all these videos. I don't want to invest any extra money. So I want to be part of a team. And what's interesting is another, Jay Pitts yesterday, because he's fresh in our brain. Actually, what's interesting, he said he was doing sign calls. Ready, guys? I don't know if you caught this yesterday. Jay Pitts was brand new in 2008. And what he would do is, before there were any teams that he was in his market, what he would do is he would go around to individual agents, because in his marketplace, a lot of agents were power listing agents, and ask those agents, hey, can I just take the sign calls? And if there's any deals on the sign calls, there'll be a split between us. And if any of those buyers that go on later on, I'll pay you 25% referral fee. Guys, the way I see it was that was a micro team. And back in 2008, he needed more business. So he did something. So he didn't feel bad about being a part of this. This was generating income. So, because sometimes when people hear being a part of a team as a negative, well, guys, making $0 in the business is kind of a negative, actually. So, but being part of a team where there's opportunity. So I agree with you, Russ and Danny. So let's move on, if you don't mind, because we have to be mindful of the time. We do have about 15 more minutes left, and I was hoping to get to some of the questions. So Judy McKenna, you there? Judy, let's see, she might be unmuted.
Good morning, all, and thank you for everyone for their share and their experience. So I know I had spoken, I don't know, about 2 weeks ago regarding a little bit of how I started in 2008. And when I did, again, it was the bottom of, it was when everything hit. I think it hit sometime that winter, and I got my anniversary date in real estate is May. So, and again, traditional brokers going in, no one really to train you what Michael offers, as far as all the training and calendars. These things didn't exist. Broker hired you, you got into a firm, and basically it was like, oh, yeah, just come into the office, but really you sat there and you didn't know what to do. So what I had done is I was a victim. I was a buyer victim. I had the reason why, and not just real quick, is I had bought a home, and we went right through the listing agent. So we didn't have representation, right? So we went right to the listing agent, and basically she lied about a lot of things. And whether it was a lie, whether it was her due diligence, accountability, obedience, whatever, confidentiality to the seller, we ended up getting a lemon of a home. Okay, so I'll just throw it out there. I'm not going to go into detail. If somebody wants to know, I'll have a cup of coffee with you. Anyway, so I was angry. And I didn't know what to do. And halfway through, this is when I shared I was working at Goldman Sachs, got packaged out, was under contract on the home. It ends up, a couple of referrals. I went with her referrals, no due diligence. So the attorney she recommended, the home inspector she recommended, so on and so forth. Everybody was a disaster, everybody. And even my attorney would go MIA, couldn't get him on the phone, had no relationship with him. It was awful. Anyway, so after I went right into, left Goldman Sachs, packaged out, 3 weeks before the closing, I put myself in real estate school. So that's kind of why I got into the real estate market. So then I got thrown in this firm, went to this firm, basically sat there, and I annoyed everybody. You know, I annoyed the top producers. Hey, you, how do you do that? What are you doing? Hey, where'd you get that? What do you do? Da, 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 da. So, and I just would ask, you know, hey, anybody have any open houses? Anybody have this? Anybody? So in the beginnings as a new agent, I really didn't have any guidance. I didn't have a book that I could go to, and basically I would just do open houses wherever. I was doing 3 a weekend. So
Wow.
I mean, they weren't my homes. And I just, you know, would do open houses. I just ran the gamut. We had a big foreclosure department at that time. So I recall a lot of the up calls. And again, that listing agent, as the agent talked about yesterday, didn't want the buyers, right? Nobody wanted the buyers, nobody. At that point, I found out about how to get my ABR. So I was putting myself in education at that point because I didn't know enough.
Judith, just for everybody on the call, because an agent actually asked me about this yesterday. ABR stands for accredited buyer representative, right?
Representation.
Yep. So yeah. So somebody actually asked me about that yesterday. Somebody on asked me if they should get it. So go ahead. Sorry.
Definitely, they should. Anyway, so I was doing research, got my ABR. And I went to my broker and I was like, who protects the buyer? How come nobody protects the buyer? And she said, oh my God, that's music to my ears. And at that time, she actually had a buyer's contractual agreement that she worked with. So I made an appointment with her and I sat with her and I said, how do I do this buyer's representation? So it was a contractual agreement that no one really used on the island at that time. Just like there were no teams. Just like there was no, you know, it was just the wild, wild west. Anyway, so I learned how to use that contractual buyer's agreement in my first year. I was an ABR and started using that buyer's contractual agreement. Hence, we were in a buyer's market. So because of the downfall of the markets. So for me, it all came together. And I became a huge buyer's agent. And as I'll just go year 1, year 2, 14,000 first year, second year, about 28,000. My third year, I switched firms. Zillow came to the service, Trulia. Not many people knew about it in Staten Island. I got a little bird chirp from a Long Island agent, and I started to look into it. At that time, I was investing maybe $300-400. But that at that time was $3,000-4,000 today, right? So $300-400, you know, it was a lot of money. Nobody did
100% agree with that, Judy.
Yeah, nobody did this, you know. So I started at this other new firm, opened it from inception along with the broker. This seems to be a rhythm for me. I open up brokers' offices and then I don't know, I leave. But so I started working at this firm, and I bought Trulia and Zillow, and all of a sudden my phone was ringing in these leads, and I had to learn all of this because this was a nuance at that time. You know, nobody had all this. You know, it was calling the broker. It wasn't all this, you know, internet stuff. So anyway, so I bought into that. And in year 3, I became, at that time, Cyborg's standards were higher. So a silver top producer was, I think, 25 to 35. The numbers were higher than it is now, the stats. So now I think up to 20, you become silver. It was higher at that time. Mm-hmm. And the third year, I became silver. So I made $160,000. And I made $160,000 on buyers.
Wow. Wow.
So this is me, you know, this is what I did. I mean, everybody knew Judith Mckeena as the buyer's agent. I had the contract, I had the extra commission in there. I did this, you know, I had a buyer's agency. So Cyborg called me. I had some brokers calling me saying, could you come in and speak to my teams? You know, can you speak to my associates? Can you explain buyer's agency? And all of a sudden I became this big advocate for buyer's agency. So I was in my comfort zone. That was my comfort zone. And I loved to help people because I was the victim. So I identified with this. And, you know, my ex-husband at this time used to say to me, you know, Jude, you lose more business than you make. I don't understand it. What's your, and I said, because I don't want anybody to ever fall where we fell, you know?
Wow.
And I just couldn't do it. So honestly, I built my reputation at that point, not a native of Staten Island, by the way, guys. I'm from Jersey. I have no family here. I have no children to have in the Board of Ed to build that sphere of influence. You know, I just didn't grow up here. I didn't really know anybody. I don't even know how I rooted here, but hence I'm here. And I had to build everything from inception. Didn't have anything. So thank God for Zillow at that time, because all it did was feed me buyer leads. I didn't really know anybody. I had nobody referring business to me because nobody knew me. I was this girl from Jersey. So anyway, so that's how
So you walked in as an individual, built it before the internet leads before it, and then the internet leads then was an additional piece of your business. And for a lot of the agents on the call,
it was my business.
What's that again?
It wasn't additional. It was my business.
Right, but prior to that, you built
That's all it was.
Yeah, but prior to internet leads, you built your business, and so yeah, then it replaced. I wouldn't replace. I think it enhanced. So because people, I'm sure, reached out to you online, but that's incredible to hear because a lot of agents, when they, you know, I think agents have choices in our business. You know, some people want to be the power listing agent. Some people want to be the power buyer's agent. And I think when people hear power buyer's agent, a lot of people cringe, especially in New York and the tri-state area. You know, I have friends in Florida. I mean, you know, they're just 80% buyers. And then there's those power listing agencies. But it's interesting that you are talking about buyers and adding some allure to them, because a lot of times agents who work on teams, oh, buyers, I'm gonna work on buyer, you gotta take them all around. And yeah, that's right, you gotta take them all around. They're paying, they're indirectly, even though in New York, a lot of times buyers are not paying the agent, and you seem to figure that out. And FYI disclaimer, you know, you need to, I would take a class or contact an attorney on how you would structure that. And we all should be always compliant, but you made that sexy, you know, like, hey, working with that buyer, because you said you were a victim as a buyer yourself and you wanted to better that experience. And truly you have done that with a ton of reviews that you get. And from what I know, working with you, you've established that, and you actually are now leading your team and showing them the way as well. So proud of you on that. So let's now kind of walk through, though, the Born of the Mckeena team. You know, what has that kind of looked like as we led up to the present? So what does your structure look like today? If you could share, please.
So, you know, as Russ had, you know, it's an ebb and flow. It's a revolving door. You know, it's tough being a team leader. It's not an easy task.
And can I add a positive piece to that, Judy? So I'm sorry to interrupt, because I want to make sure it's positive here. When we say revolving door, it usually has a negative connotation. And I think that when we use the word revolving door for any one of our listeners or viewers, I think what we need to say is that, you know, the agent jumps on the team, they possibly get what they need from that team leader, and hopefully establish a really solid relationship going forward. And then there are other agents that join a team. Unfortunately, they may not be suited for that team, actually, and some team leaders actually are firing those agents off the team, and that should be the case as well. So, but you were right. The revolving door, the positive spin on it is more, it has to be agent. It's just like when you're trying to build a company, you know, you're building a company. There will be employees. In this case, it's not an employee relationship, and rightfully so. They come on board. If they don't meet your standards as the Mckeena team, then you have to let them go. If it's not a right fit, then they've got to go. So you're right, the ebb and flow. So I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure we keep this on a positive spin with revolving door. and more so about just people getting, including the team leader primarily, who's the business owner of that team. I think that's the piece that I wanted to make sure we stay positive on. So cool.
I was going to get there, but you jumped.
Oh,
Are you done qualifying? No. I'm only kidding. So
yeah, this is good for good TV over here. So yeah, so sorry about
yeah.
that.
So
yeah.
And
And Russ is laughing now. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, right,
All
Russ?
all right.
You know, he doesn't even let you get there.
You know.
He always does this. He always does
Right?
this.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
Okay.
All right, go. You know, I'm just gonna
Glad
go
you
crawl
got my
under,
back, brother, because you know, yeah.
I'm gonna crawl under the table now. That's it. Go
you're
ahead. Sorry. Go back, Judy.
Well, when you say ebb and flow, right? You know, it's ebb and flow and revolving door, right? So meaning the same, right? So people are going to jump into your stream, and they're going to hope for, you know, the best flowing of the waters, right? So, you know, a ripple hits, a tidal wave hits, the raft, you know, this is going to happen. It's human nature, you know. Teams are relationships, you know, husbands, wives, right? Employer, employee. These are relationships. They're going to grow. They're going to work. They may not work. You know, everybody's in it for a reason. Everybody has their own motives. Everyone has, you know, their own intellect, their own whatever it may be. But the thing is, you know, I enjoy freely giving what I've learned and educated myself on. So I don't have a problem with that. So I'm a different type of team leader. So I actually co-list with my team members. I have a concierge position where they learn how to become a listing agent, and there's a flat fee attached to that. I don't really like to disclose my model because I believe it's confidential amongst me and my team. I have a contractual agreement individually with my team. I'm upfront.
Just to be clear, I have to do it. So it's a relationship agreement, right? So, yeah, please.
Agreement. So this way it's all in writing, because no one could say, well, that wasn't what what I thought.
Yep.
So I like to go over that over and over again, so I'm clear on it. I'll bring that up in team meetings. I will constantly reflect on, you know, it's a different type of model. I don't have a traditional model. So I did have an assistant for a very long time, but not like a traditional assistant. She wasn't 40 hours. I'm not an office person. I don't have children. I'm disciplined. I'm an A-type personality. I get up, have my cup of coffee. I'm in front of the computer in my pajamas at 8:30. You know, I don't really have accountability except for my business. So for me, it's easy. I don't have to be that structural, go into the office every day. You know, I had an assistant for about 8 years, and she had all my passwords, she had my credit card, she had everything. And I haven't found that person again. So I took on a lot by myself, but that's okay for now. So now you got me all off track. So anyway,
I didn't say anything.
The deal is, I've had people. So I'm a very.
But can you then touch on that though? I mean, in the 8 years of that.
Yeah.
No. So I want to let everybody know, because there are some questions popping up right now. We did go a little over time, so hopefully you're enjoying everybody here. We will have about 5 or 10 minutes at the end for questions. So anybody continue on with putting questions in the chat box. We'll answer them. And then Judy, back to you with the, 8 years. Did you get what though you needed from that relationship at the time though? That 8 years with the assistant, were you able to do more business with that administrative assistant? What was your?
You know, she did a lot. She did a lot. And, you know, it just so happened that, you know, it had its ups and downs, you know, like any relationship. Of course. But, you know, she was a grandmother. She became a grandmother. And then it was another grandchild and another grandchild. And then I fell at the wayside. So at that point, I was like, okay, sometimes in real estate, you see things coming and it hits you right in the head, or you hit that brick wall, or you don't see it coming, right? You know, so there's like, I didn't see all these grandchildren. So I was kind of caught with no assistant. I had to make a choice, right? A business decision. So this is going to happen. Are you getting the production that you're paying for? Are you getting the service that you're paying for? So that's how I run my business. I'm a service business. I am here to service my clients, and they expect duties and services from me that I need to give. And so I'm real big on service. I also have a hotel background, so it's all about service. And fighting for those reviews. You got to fight for those reviews. I mean,
100%.
you got to struggle. You have to like pull these people in the rank and be like, well, how you doing? Hey, weren't you happy? Can you help me out? And I'm humble.
And have reviews helped you, Judy? Have reviews helped you at all?
Yes. I get a lot of out of state clients.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. And they're.
And would you say that the reviews were important for that?
They're
Right?
based on my reviews. I don't know them from Adam.
Yeah.
I don't know them from Adam. And so I do get it on my reviews, but it's a struggle and it's work. You have to really work at it. And I can't tell you, a majority of my clients are all about reviews. All about reviews.
Amazing. So as we pivot towards present and future, where are we at in the present now with COVID-19 or leading up to it? Where are we at with your team and COVID? And then take us right into the future. Where do you see this going in the future?
In the future, presently right now I'm kind of transitioning into a little bit more of a traditional team. I've created a position as a transaction coordinator, and that's Alex. She's on the call. Maybe Alex could say hi to everyone, because I don't think we haven't all met each other. But anyway,
Hi, Alex.
I'm here. Hi.
Hi, Alex.
So Alex is going to learn. She's really interested in real estate, and her, she wants to learn everything. And I think the best way to learn is the back end, right? Learning the back end of the business. Because you see, I didn't know any of that. I didn't know how a transaction got from acceptance to the closing table. I didn't know all the meat and potatoes in between, step by step, and how you had to maintain the transaction, right? You had to massage the transaction. You had to run, get over the hurdles. No one explained that to me. Nobody. So, I think it's important to, understand the substance between A to Z, and which really will make you a great agent. The training behind the doors, right? Getting familiar with clients, talking with people on the phone. That's what really, it's all the meat and potatoes in between the A to Z, and so I've created that. I have Michael Ford. He's a buyer's agent. He's been with me for about a year. And Michael knows nothing but buyers, and he loves it. He has the enthusiasm that I had for buyers. So he's into it. He loves it. He'll go out 6, 7 sets of buyers on the weekend. That's what I did. I had crackers in my car to eat because I would do trifectors on the weekends with buyers. But people who downplay buyer's agency, huge, 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 huge mistake. I am not a native of this island, didn't know the neighborhoods, didn't know anything about it, but being a buyer's agent and being out there and showing anywhere at a minimum 25 to 30 houses a week, sometimes 50, I learned the island. I learned how to. I learned. So
and for the naysayers on the call, that's why I love doing these. So you talked about Staten Island, and what's your feedback on doing that in Brooklyn? So because I want to make sure we just translate to our Brooklyn side of the company. What's your feedback on that? I mean, do you think that, because many times we hear that, it's not possible, but I want to hear your perspective on that. And I can share some of my experience, but I'd rather hear from you. What do you believe on the Brooklyn side? Do you think that agents will be able to get some buyers? What's the most important thing that a buyer needs to hear from you about in order to want to work directly with you and give you loyalty?
I think, again, I'm going to go back to it's a service-based industry, right?
Correct.
So I'm there. You see, I'm on the hot sheet. I check the hot sheet 10 to a dozen times a day. Not once in the morning and once at night. It's like my stock ticker,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So I'm watching it all day long and I'm seeing what new hit and I'm on it. I'm on it. You know why? Because Zillow's on it.
Oof,
So
yes.
I don't want my buyer to send me a new listing. I want to be on, and I can't, it's my DNA. Yeah, the hot sheet's my DNA. I don't go all day long without it. I need it. It's like a drug, right? So
yeah. And I think that's, goes to the point of when you got into the business, just to kind of put this in perspective for our Brooklyn agents. When you got into the business, even Staten Island really wasn't as you said, wasn't really the thing working with buyers. And then until it was a thing, especially in the economic climate. And same thing for the Brooklyn side. A lot of agents have said, well, you'll never make any money on Zillow. So me and Judy can relate, right? We never make money on portals. We can relate. And also, hey, you'll never get loyalty agreements. And when I was working with Josephine, I'll just kind of tie in Brooklyn side. So this way people hear, this way there's no naysayers on, well, that was because it's Staten Island. Nobody would say that on this call, but that was because of Staten Island. But I will tell you that we did so well with loyalty agreements. I actually had way too many. And because people would want to work with me, and I told Josephine, we got to cool it down a little bit. There's too many people signing up, and then they really then it was becoming a disservice. I had too many of these loyalty agreements, but that was a good. It's okay. That was a good problem to have. Yeah, go ahead, guys. That was a good problem to have when I had too many loyalty agreements in place. So I really appreciate what Judy's mentioning here because we have such a complex group of individuals here. So yeah, that's it. I just wanted to, I thought that was a beautiful thing, Judy, that you just shared, because I think that as we enter a transitional market, even if we weren't transitioning, there are agents right now on this call that have worked with the leads programs and have 50 buyers in their pool and are thinking maybe that's not enough. And I think 50 is a decent number of customers that they can work with. Obviously, you always want to scale it, but where there's a will is a way. And I think it's true. I think that most agents rely on just these e-alerts, IDX alerts. The reality is if you're not calling the customer, as you just mentioned, they're either calling someone else or forwarding that message to someone else versus if you're calling up saying, hey, how great. Did you hear what Judy said, guys? She sold how many properties a week?
Oh God, at a minimum, I used to do 25. Sometimes I'd go up to 40, 50. I'd work all weekend. I mean,
and you know what's interesting, because you mentioned trifecta, sometimes I talk to agents, not only just in our office and other offices and other states as well. And you'll hear people say, yeah, I've only been on 10 appointments this week. And that's because there were 10 good ones. And I'm like, well, did you go to contract? No. So then they weren't good. And the moral of the story is what you just said is this business is a numbers game because people need to experience the houses. So when you're going out to 50 or 100 showings, I remember Friday, Saturday, Sunday for me, oh my gosh, I was exhausted. It was because we booked so many appointments when I had an assistant, when Josephine was my assistant, she would book so many freaking appointments. It was crazy. My head was about to spin, but it really built my business as well. I worked with a lot of buyers. I was also I was working with listings as well, but it was incorporated into my business as a whole. So Judy, any future pieces? Because I know some agents have a bunch of questions in the chat. So anything that you could say, because the future is here. Whether you want to share economic outlook or whether you want to share what's your outlook overall for the future, business-wise or economic?
Well, for the future, I would say there's definitely going to be a change. But I'm not afraid of the change. I believe, I don't want to take my shoes off in someone's house. That bumps me out. I don't want to walk around somebody's floors. So maybe now, I have a box of booties. So now that's going to be the norm. I'm just going to put on my booties and give them to my clients. I think, I don't know. I just think it's going to be okay. It's going to be different. But I just believe for the future, I think it's going to be fine. I think there's going to be a hiccup. I do think we're definitively going to go back into a buyer's market. There's going to be a tug of war with the pricing where sellers, but then I think just like happens in 2008, bam, it's going to hit. Sellers will have a reality, and then all of a sudden, it's just the way it is. It's 7-year changes. It always does this, and I'm happy that I've been able to experience 2 to 3 different types of transitions thus far. So I'm all okay about the change. I'm in my comfort zone. It's buyer agency. I became a listing agent by default. I know that people probably think that's crazy, but when I first started getting listings, I hated them. I hated them because the buyers are grateful, and you're excited and you meet their families and it's love, Then you get with these sellers, it was different. It was different for me. And then by default, I became a listing agent and then a team leader. And then, my agents became the buyer's agents. But I'll let you know, this is what, for me, I'll never do again, is now all those buyers from the last 5-6 years, they're not in my hub anymore, right? They're at the individual buyer agents, right? And if they're not on my team today, they'll get their listings. See, buyers become sellers. And you always have to remember that. So if you want to keep your company, your business going, you have to incorporate buyers. They have to be in there. They're the meat and the potatoes. The listings are not the meat and the potatoes. This is an upside down thinking because I never thought that way.
Yeah. And it's very interesting, and I want to be able to spin off the different perspectives there, because you raised a very high level, piece of information, and then but pulling the layers off of that, as an agent, as an individual who is struggling to say, well, wow, if I'm on someone's team and I'm only making X% off the deal, they must be aware of all that possible future business may come. It's all for the future opportunity. And that's why Zillow's pricing and Realtor.com's pricing is such. So for those new agents are saying, oh my gosh, my split is this, and it's for team leaders as well. It's really to understand that there's so much future business that comes out of that buyer, because it's a relationship. That's more from that side, but from the high level, I understand, Judy, for sure, those relationships, the relationships do matter because, year over year, you can only have so many relationships though, but for sure you can have more of them. And there are tactics and ways in which everybody can benefit, including those agents that are on the team, to keep those buyers in front of team leaders and make sure it's fruitful also for that buyer's agent who's working on the team for long-term gains for the whole team as a unified front. So that's from the higher level perspective. It's not, but I understand you want to stay in front of those customers the same way the buyer's agent is getting the benefit of being on the team, or if that buyer's agent is buying their own leads. A lot of times people say it's very expensive for Realtor.com or Zillow, whatever. This is not a commercial for them. So then we talk portals. But that customer that engages, there's so much long-term benefits of working with that customer because there are truly multiple funnels of possible transactions, their friends, their family. There's so much there. So I want to leave off with that, Judy, because the future is actually the same as the past. Relationships matter. And what's interesting about relationships is that those that know how to scale those relationships and have more of them, and more healthy ones, because it's really hard to have a relationship with 10,000 people in your database. It's just really hard. But there are agents that have figured that out as well, but are they as fruitful? But the point is relationships still matter. And that's why the future is very bright because of technology and because of videos and because of emails. So thank you for sharing. Any final notes? I don't want to take, I just wanted to kind of spin off of what you said. Any final notes from you before we go into questions?
No, I just believe.
Judy, you froze a little bit. Hold on.
Beginning.
Wait, Judy, hold on. We froze you. Yeah. Okay. So you believe what?
No, I said I'm looking forward to my new journey at Remax Edge and the office in Staten Island and being part of, you know, another nuance.
We're losing you again a little bit. You said another nuance.
Yes, you know, opening a new being part of the opening of a new office, and you know, and meeting all of you.
Well, thank you.
We haven't met, so we
I
look
know.
forward to.
I know. So hopefully we can get to meet all soon. All right, guys. So we have you know, we're gonna just go through the chat box real quick. So for any of our guests that have to leave, I understand, and thank you guys all of you guys who have contributed here. I appreciate you, and I know our agents do, and our industry does as well for contributing to this. So we'll kind of take it back, and we'll run through these questions real quick. So first question is, May Lan asks, when did you start hiring an assistant and why? And guys, just for the guests on the line over here, just you guys are all leaders here, so if you could just say, hey, I got that question, I would appreciate that. So I'm just gonna read the question real quick. So May Lan asks, let's go right here. So May Lan asked, let's go again. Why did you start hiring an assistant? When did you start hiring an assistant and why? And what kind of jobs will your assistant handle for you? I think she was asking this to the expansion team earlier.
Russ, you want to answer?
Yeah,
You want me to?
I got it. Basically, there's no answer as to time frame. It's an answer as to when you start. Okay, all right. When your own business has taken over so much that you can't handle getting new business. So if your current business is stopping you from getting new business, that's when you hire an assistant, because you always have to have new business. It can't just be, I have 12 listings, I have 20 listings, I have 100 listings, and now I'm servicing all those listings, but I can't get new listings. Because if you do that, you'll be rich for a first 3-4 months, but then after that, you're dead again. So it can't be the slope of up and down, up and down. It's got to be constant at the flat line, right? So it has to always be busy. So if you reach that point of I'm struggling to get new business because I'm too busy, that's when you hire an assistant. And what they do is all the tasks that, you know, you can pay hourly for, that, you know, if you calculate your hourly wage, is it worth it to just input listings, to answer phone calls, to, you know, answer the emails? It's just, and social media, those things can be done per hour. So, you know, so yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's a great answer. And that's just one of the reasons why I always go back to how teams are born. And, you know, it's when you have an abundance of something, it's getting a way of generating new business. So, and that's why I'm a firm believer in what you guys are all doing here as far as team leaders are concerned. It's when you have an abundance, in many cases, of things to either do or things that are getting away from you generating new business, that's when you need to bring these things. So that's an excellent answer. Danny, you want to?
It's a good problem to have.
It's a good problem to have, for sure. You know, it's all about leverage. You know, I mean, you can't be at every place at one time. There's only so much that you can do as either one person or even as a team. You know, everyone has their roles, and if you can pay someone to do some of the tasks that you don't need to be doing, and you could be generating on money making activities, that's when it's time to hire an assistant.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what Russ was saying before, is so everyone has a clear picture. You know, when we talk about money making, it's all money making. But if you look at the 4 steps in our business, lead generation comes first, lead conversion second, lead servicing is third, education fourth. So if you look at the top parts of the funnel, if you knock that out and don't continue on with that, as Russ mentioned, you go on this seesaw, this roller coaster rather. And I think that all things are important, even the administrative tasks. The challenge is if you get sucked in too much to the administrative tasks, then you cannot continue, which is the lifeblood of your business, not just new business, but getting business while business is being tended to. And I think that it can all be done effectively with, you know, the right process. So these are great points, guys.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
I kept hearing this over and over. I Keller Williams and Remax, and for you, Mike, and I think I've always known what it meant, but I think that only now it's starting to, you know, come in and sit in. A lot of times, a partnership happens, and you consider that, you know, if you create a partnership, right, you're paying somebody half your money to do some of your work. So a partnership may seem like a good idea, and that's why I said that, you know, me and Danny are rare because workload and egos even, right? But if you have a partnership where you didn't hire an assistant, instead you hired a partner, now you gave away half your money when you could have just paid somebody a couple dollars an hour. That's more beneficial. So, you know, I think that that's a very important point, that if you want to make a team, it's got to make sense. And you don't hire a partner, you hire an assistant. If you're doing $100,000 and your partner's doing $100,000, and together, all you're doing is at 150, that's not enough. It's got to go up. It can't stay the same or go down.
Yeah, and you know what? I love Russ, and thank you for acknowledging that. But I want to also acknowledge you guys. It's the power of self-discovery. And I'll take it one step back for a second. You know, for agents that hire buyer's agents, essentially, so you mentioned how partners come together and they're splitting their business in half in many structures. And of course, all commissions are negotiable. I have to disclaim that as well. But in many cases, the structures between agent and buyer's agent is about 25% of top line revenue. So you mentioned 50%, and most agents are like, yeah, do my open houses. And they forgot that they're probably giving away 25% of their top line revenue. And then by the end of the year, they're wondering, wow, I worked harder and I made less money, but it seemed like I made more because I did more transactions. How come I'm making less money? And the reality comes from typically the structure. And it's interesting, though, out of those 2 points that you made, or you made one, I made one, we put it together, many agents, to create a team, most of the time when you're creating a team, what you're looking for is growth in your business or time. But know that the time, though, that you're trading for, you know, whether it's spending more time with your family or doing something outside of the real estate space, that could be a big dent in your business, because then you're not doing new lead generation activities. So, and that's why I go bananas when I start hearing these agents that create teams that provide no value to the agents on the team, because typically those team leaders are doing their own business, not paying attention to their own team members. It's not really advancing the whole entity of ABC team. So, and I won't talk about it here, but I've shared in my story. I'll do another video about my story, how second year basically could have made me broke when I grew the team, because I wasn't paying attention to all the things that I was supposed to do to generate business. So that's a great point, Russ. So thank you for sharing that. It was really important on the call. I hope everyone hears that loud and clear. So let's go on to some more questions. At the beginning of the year, everyone has a goal. Maybe we can give this one to Judith. So Judith or Liz, at the beginning of the year, everyone has a goal on how this year will look. If any of you can predict the current situation, my main question is, how are your goals changed from the beginning of the year and now? And you know, what has changed? So if I ask this question, so let's give this one to Liz and Judy. So we'll start with Liz first, if you're still on the call. So how did you pivot, right? So everyone starts out with a goal. Faye is wondering, how has that changed now?
So for me, the goal hasn't changed. the direction of how I get there, of course, has to be adjusted. So, you know, you don't completely turn around and just, you know, say, forget it, doesn't work. And again, everyone's going to be different in how they react to that. There are the people that say, you know what, I'd rather shoot high. And if I, you know, here, and if I get here, I'm okay with it. And then there's the people that are, hey, I'm going to shoot here, knowing that I could probably get here. So I think it's important for you to know what type of a person you are and what gets you going and motivated. Because not everyone is the, hey, I'm going to shoot up here, and if I get here, I'm okay with that, because that may just really totally derail you. So the goal still hasn't changed. We're in April. We still do have time to hit the goal that we intended. And, you know, when things go back to the new norm, you know, we'll just maybe have to adjust then, you know, but not totally derail.
And Judith, what can you say on that? Has the goal changed, Judith?
I could actually just echo Liz. It hasn't changed. It's
Okay.
not going. You know,
And I guess we'll just give it to all of you guys. Then let's, Russ and Danny, has the goal changed?
The goal has not changed. The goal should not change.
Got it.
Just,
Okay.
it should change accordingly when things kind of get back to normal, hopefully. For right now, I have not changed my goal in terms of what's expected from us.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. We got, I think, one or two more questions, and then we're this was actually asked by Russ to Judith. This is a funny one. Do you need a passport to go to Staten Island, Judy?
Don't read that.
Actually, I just renewed my passport to get to Brooklyn.
All right. And then last question over here. The last question is going to be, this is from Mary Lee. What kind of video content, Dan and Russ, are you sending to your clients, and how often are you sending this? Greg, if you don't mind put the question in the chat box, Greg. Appreciate that. So yeah, Russ, Danny, did you mention video content? What type of video content are you sharing, guys?
Well, I'll let Danny answer. I'll let Danny answer, but I just want to say just one quick line, but it's Danny's question. I think the rule of thumb is just why not, right? Why not put into video everything that you would have done on a phone call, a text, or an email? Why not? So if you could, it's how Jay Pitt said, you know, so it's just, you know, add a video to everything that you're going to do anyway.
Yes. Danny?
So the video that I'm leaving is I'm staying in touch with the clients every 2 weeks. I'm tracking the videos that I'm sending them. The first video I'm sending them is just kind of saying this is a great way to kind of communicate with you guys now that this is going to be the new norm for a little bit. Touching base to see how they're feeling, if they might need something. The next call would be if they have any questions in regards to how the market's looking, if there are any buyers out there, any sellers out there, just kind of giving them a little update. And then as the time goes, I will come up with new videos and new things to kind of give them.
Got it. Beautiful. Thank you. While we're waiting for Greg's question, anybody want to chime in? Greg, if you don't mind, put the question in the chat box, Greg, because we're trying to finish up. Greg, just type in the chat box. Any Judy or Liz want to jump on that as well? Any video content being sent? If not, then we'll just wait for Greg's question. Okay, Greg.
Mike?
Yeah.
I saw May put out a question. She put out a question in regards to if we have any disagreements.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. I did. Oh, wow. There's actually a couple of questions here. So, yes. Have you had any disagreements, and what are you going to do about it? What do you do about it? Yes. And then we have actually one question from Richie Lopez. Greg, if you can hear me, I just have you one more shot over here. Please type your question in the chat box because we're about to wrap the meeting. So go ahead. Give us the answer to that one, Danny.
So yeah, disagreements do happen. We are both very, very high-headed, of course. We do have our egos, but we do know when to put our guards down. When we argue with each other, we do it in private. We try to just kind of make up and do what, clear the air right there and then. Just hit it on the, hit it right there before it gets too bad. But yeah, I think it's normal. It's like any relationship, like a husband and wife, like a sibling. It's the same thing, but we just got to work through it.
Very good. Well, that's a good very good answer. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And then Richie Lopez asked, let me just get this over here. Judy, let's go give this one to you, and then maybe we'll give this one to Liz as well. So as an agent or a team leader, what was your biggest hurdle and how did you overcome it, Judy?
As an agent and a team leader?
And or a team leader. What was your biggest hurdle? How did you overcome it?
I would have to say relationships, just learning from my mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And that, that's it. I every single mistake was an education for me or a stepping stone.
Got it.
As an agent and as a leader, I mean, as a friend, as anything, so there was a lot of hurdles, and each one I just learned from. I took what I could.
Got it. Beautiful. Greg, Greg wanted to comment. So was that on any of the current topics, Greg? Go ahead. You can go ahead and comment, Greg. Greg?
I think he might have left.
Okay. No, he's still there. He just, and then one more question. We'll give that to Liz. Liz, so anything that you could share, Liz, on that with the biggest hurdle, whether you're
for me, it's a constant hurdle that I'm trying to get better at, and it's in my mind having all of these great things that I want to do and put out there, and either not doing them or not putting the plan in action to do them. So it's just being disciplined, and I'm just constantly working on that. We see something online or in an email that we get and we're like, I want to do that. I need to send that out. I need to talk about that. And then it's actually putting that into action. So, that's
taking action.
A hurdle personally.
Got it. Yeah. And I think it's a hurdle for all of us. So anyway, listen, we're kind of wrapped for time. We put a lot of into this, and I'm sorry to cut it like this, but guys, Liz, thank you so much. Russ, Danny, expansion team, thank you so much. And Judith McKenna, thank you so much. And thank you to all of you guys for really jumping on this call, our guests, and really engaging. Hopefully this is extremely valuable to hearing others within our own market and within our own office at RE/MAX Edge. Hopefully this is valuable to you, and we'll keep this up as long as you guys want. So thank you so much for your time and your contribution. So have a good day, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody. Be safe.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Bye.